All right, Jordan, the time has come. This is what everybody's here for. This is eating up the news cycle for Clemson football since basically the clocks hit zero against Texas um, down in Austin when pretty much everybody knew at that point, defensive coordinator, there was going to be a change. The rumors were out there even before the season was over. They got really loud after the clocks hit zero against Texas and Austin. And this past Monday, 2 days ago, Dabo Sweeney comes out and officially announces what everyone pretty much already knew, that Wes Goodwin would not be retained as defensive coordinator for the Clemson Tigers in 2025. Um, so then there begs the question, who will be the next defensive coordinator? And there's lists out there all over the place, and the rumor mill is on absolute fire about this DC and that DC. So we're going to go through I'm going to give you a list of names that have been talked about when it comes to the Clemson defensive coordinator position. Not all of these names are legitimate names, but we're just going to talk about them. We're going to give our opinions. We're going to talk about of this list who we would like to see hired, or we'll give a couple names that maybe aren't on this list that we would like to see Dabo take a look at and just speculate, because that's the fun part of college football, and especially the offseason. Speculation is what us college football fans do best, and it's going to be a fun time to just speculate about these different DCs and look into them and look at their resumes before we hear official word from Dabo on who's going to take the reins for the defensive coordinator position for the Tigers. So I'm going to go through it real quick, Jordan, and then I'll get your thoughts on it after that. Tim Banks was obviously one of the first names that were kind of attached to this job. Saw a report from David Hood today that basically there's no interest there from Clemson's side. Maybe he's working an angle to try to get a little bit more money out of Tennessee. I don't know, but doesn't sound like he's going to be a legitimate option at the defensive coordinator for Clemson, according to David Hood. Again, I don't have that insider knowledge, but I assume David Hood does. So Tom Allen at Penn State, their DC, as linebacker DC at Penn State, also was a head coach at Indiana. He was coach of the year in 2020. So that's a name that's been floated out there. Tyler Santucci, Georgia Tech's defensive coordinator. Obviously, he was under the tutelage of Mike Elko for a long time. This past season was actually his first being away from him. So he was involved with defenses at Duke, Texas A&M, a lot of good defenses. Obviously, we know Mike Elko and the defensive mind that he is. So that's obviously a name that's been talked about quite a bit as far as Clemson's next defensive coordinator. Al Golden, Notre Dame's DC. Heard that name get floated out there as of recently. This is a more recent one. Currently, obviously preparing for a huge playoff game coming up. So don't think he's interviewing at this time, but who knows? I guess it could be an option. Stranger things have happened. Our last coordinator hire coached in a national title game and got hired basically the next day. So not saying it's impossible, but we'll see. Also, Clemson is the reason that he got fired at Miami with that huge loss back in 2015. So I don't know if he holds any lingering animosity for that. So I'm just kidding.
Wonder.
We'll see. Aaron Henry, Illinois DC, also had stints at Vandy and North Carolina State. His name has been floated out there. A big one, obviously one that we would both be excited about. Jim Leonard, defensive DB coach, pass game coordinator for the Denver Broncos currently. Obviously had his stint at Wisconsin. He was actually the interim head coach, and ultimately they hired. They did not give him the opportunity, so he leaves, goes and does goes for an analyst position, and then obviously to the NFL after that. So I think that would be a huge one. Jeff Hafley, the DC at Green Bay. That guy makes $3 million a year already. Obviously, he left the college game because of the grind of recruiting. So would he really want to come back with, and he left, I think, before the transfer portal and all that stuff got really crazy. So not only would he be back to the grind of recruiting, but he would be back to a new grind, which is recruiting your own roster at the end of every single season. Would that be a legitimate thing that he wanted to do with his current position as DC at Green Bay? I don't really know. That's just a quick list that I put together, Jordan. You can give your opinion on those names that I listed or add some new names. Your thoughts on Clemson's defensive coordinator search and where you would like to see it go.
Yeah, it's that list is, all of them are extremely strong candidates. Some more than others. Obviously, I think I'll start with the name that's been floated out more most recently, in Al Golden. A guy that's making really good money right now. I think around $2.25 million a year, something around there. Notre Dame doesn't release their they're a private school, so they don't
Private
have
school, yeah,
necessarily.
they don't have. They're like Miami; they don't have to tell you how much they pay their coaches.
Yeah, but I believe it was the same. He's being paid the same amount as their offensive coordinator, Mike Denbrock, and I think he's on a 4-year, $9 million deal. So that's two. You do the math; it's roughly $2.25 million per year. So I do think that is in the range where Clemson would be able to offer a price increase. The question is, would Notre Dame match that? I think Notre Dame, realistically could. And obviously he's very comfortable there. He has a really, he's had a really strong, he's had strong defenses since he's been there. And they're having one of their best seasons in a long time right now, getting ready to potentially play for a spot in the national championship game tomorrow. So, I think that would be a slam dunk hire if Clemson were able to pull that one off. But, I think that's one of the more long shot ones. You mentioned one that, has been, I think it has been mentioned a couple of times, but people haven't really, looked that deep into it. But, Aaron Henry, you mentioned from Illinois. Obviously, I think those of you that watched this year's Citrus Bowl between Illinois and South Carolina, they put together a really, really good defensive game plan against Lenore Sellers. Much better than, considerably better than Clemson's did, at least in the fourth quarter. Would not be a terrible hire. You mentioned Tyler Santucci, a guy that, the past couple of years at Duke and then at Georgia Tech, left those defenses considerably better than when he found it, than where he found it. Duke was, when he was there at Duke with Mike Elko, their defense improved significantly. And then this past season, Georgia Tech's defense, who was one of the worst in Power 5 last season, jumped up to, I believe they were 46th in total defense. So I think he's a younger name that's a rising star in the coaching industry, but has shown that, even away from Mike Elko, that he can put together a capable defense. And obviously, if he were to come to Clemson, he would have by far the most talent he's had to work with so far in his young coaching career. So I don't want to go through every single name one by one, but those are. It's a really, really strong list. There are a lot of names that you could go out. We already talked about Jim Leonard. I think one of the things about this search is that it's so hard to, tell. Like, the indication is that Dabo wants to make a big splash, big swing type of hire.
Right.
And part of me feels like we're not necessarily, I think we might need to think outside the box a little bit, because people are throwing out these names and all of that. But at the end of the day, I think Dabo has been really, really been keeping this process very close to the vest so far. There hasn't been like any definitive names leaking out, and obviously with there's still being coaches coaching in the college football playoff and also pretty soon in the NFL playoffs.
Right.
There is a very wide range of candidates that Dabo could potentially, pull from. And, so there is, I'm prepared for pretty much anything, other than like I saw some, joke posts about Nick Saban coming out of retirement to be the defensive coordinator. I don't think it's going to be something like that. But, I really think Clemson has the and Dabo, I think, has the backing from Graham Neff to go get who you think is the guy, and that could mean any of the names we mentioned, or who knows, maybe even slightly bigger, or a name we haven't mentioned, and so I'm really anxious to see, as the college football playoffs, come to a close, and we get a clearer picture about who's going to be available, kind of how that timetable shakes out. Because Dabo said he wanted to have it done by the end of the month, but what does that entail exactly?
Right. Yeah, and he gave a pretty broad time frame, right? He said, "I'll start the interview process immediately, and we'll have a resolution basically by the end of January or sooner." So, you know, does that mean he's waiting on somebody to finish coaching? Does that mean he's got a couple candidates that he's going to interview and weigh out the pros and cons of each? Who knows? But I can assure you, the only person that truly knows is Dabo Sweeney, and maybe one to two other people that really know what he's thinking and what direction. Would not be surprised if nobody on this list is hired as the Clemson defensive coordinator, and it's somebody that nobody even has mentioned yet. Um, that's kind of how the Garrett Riley hire happened. I had no inkling, nor do I think anybody did, that Garrett Riley was going to be an option for the offensive coordinator position at Clemson. I don't think anybody saw that coming. It kind of blindsided everybody. So Dabo knows where he's going to go. I'm sure he has a clear direction, but to your point, I think it's clear that he's going to go after somebody that's experienced. It's not going to be a first-time play caller. They're going to be experienced. They're going to have a resume, and they're going to be somebody that can really take the reins on this defense and take the talent that we have on this roster, which is substantial, and get it to the next level and get it to a level of play that matches the talent that we have on the roster. It's going to be a very important hire. All these names being floated out are speculation at best. No one truly knows what's going on. We all have from our list, names that we like. I think every name on the list really that's been, of the names that's been thrown around so far would be good hires, any of them, right? Some better than others, obviously. But I don't hate any of the names that have been floated out there so far. So it's going to be interesting to follow. I think he probably knows where he's going to go, right? Does he land his number one? I don't know. Uh, and we'll probably never know whether it's his number one or not his number one when he makes the hire. But it certainly makes for a lot of fun things to talk about as Clemson Tiger fans, and a lot of different DCs to look at and be like, oh yeah, this be cool. Look what he did here. Look what he did there. Um, it's a lot of fun, and the flight tracker is alive and well on social media. Everybody's reporting
Yeah,
planes coming from Ohio or Green Bay, Wisconsin, or wherever across the country. Why is this plane coming from this place to Clemson, South Carolina? It's so much fun to sit back and watch, and yeah, enjoy it while it lasts. I mean, this is awesome for the off season.
and it's the anticipation. We don't have these very often.
Right. Yeah. I mean, Clemson's not a place where there's a ton of turnover on the coaching staff. So uh, this is a unique position. And like I said, the last hire. I mean, that happened so quickly. There wasn't even time for anticipation or really lists and stuff to be published. It was really quick. Hey, Brandon Streeter's out. Oh, by the way, Garrett Riley's the new offensive coordinator at Clemson. And you're like, wait, what? What
Yep.
just happened? Because we were
Literally
like,
within like a 30 minute, like a 30
it was
minutes of
crazy,
the news. Yeah, it was insane.
literally. 'Cause I remember it happened like within like 30 minutes to an hour of each other because we were about to go on air
Yeah.
when the news hit 2 years ago. So This one's obviously not working out that way. Clearly, word got out pretty early that Wes was going to be let go, and it gets confirmed on Monday, and now we're having a whole lot of fun with just talking about who's going to be the guy that takes the reins as Clemson's DC. What I will say is, I know there's some fans out there talking about, is there still a possibility Dabo hires within? No, I don't believe so.
I don't
I
think
think
so.
if he was going to do that, we'd already know who the next DC of Clemson was. It wouldn't take to the end of the month if you were going to promote from within your staff. That doesn't make any sense. So he's obviously looking for somebody outside of the staff. He's looking for somebody that's experienced, and probably somebody that they're going to have to pay a significant amount of money to, but because it's probably going to be somebody that already has a pretty good job that you have to pry them away from. So I can't wait to see who it ends up being. There will probably be disappointed Clemson fans, no matter who the hire is. There will be people that say, "Oh, we should have hired this person, not this person." But hey, I truly mean it when I say I trust Dabo Swinney to make this hire. Dabo Swinney, if nothing else, has made it abundantly clear so far this offseason that he is locked in on getting Clemson back to competing for national championships. That's why he's doing the things that he is. That's why Wes Goodwin's no longer the defensive coordinator. So I fully believe that he will make the next DC hire with that in mind. Who's going to give Clemson the best opportunity to compete at the highest level of college football?
100%. I couldn't have said it better. I really think that Dabo is going to make sure that this hire, he's going to do everything, his due diligence, all of that, to make sure that the hire ends up being the right one, for this defense, because you do have a lot of talent on this side of the ball. And the performance this past season was not indicative of the level of talent that you have on that side of the ball.
Mm-hmm.
And, with the returning talent you have on offense, it would be a shame for your defense, which has been uncharacteristic for Clemson, for over a decade. It would be a shame for your defense to waste a really great offense. We have not, said that before. And so I think it's all important, especially with this group in 2025, to make the right hire to be able to get the most out of these guys.